Are we living in a simulation? That's the question. It's a fascinating question. So what would it be like? Maybe it would be like living in Tamriel in the Elder Scrolls. Imagine we have the 8 divines, we have the gods we fear or worship. We have this sense that we're part of something greater than ourselves. We have a story that we live out. And yet we know that higher truth is something beyond just what we see, just what meets the eye. We don't really know what that means. And yet, if we could somehow step out of this dimension and look deep enough, maybe we would find that there's a code written in the heavens that dictates the courses of our lives. And then we would understand that life is partially all about writing our own story. But it's also within the parameters of a code that was already written since the beginning of time. And so it would explain why it is that we have a sense of destiny. And we also feel like we have a very strong desire to tell our own story. We want free agency. We want to explore, to do our own thing, to swim upstream, to go the other way. But we also have a sense that there's a path we're supposed to follow. And we want to be true to the destiny that we're meant to follow. If we look at religion or we look at science, every ideology uses different language to explain the ineffable. And yet the truth is that all of these different ways of looking at the world seem to agree on that notion of simulation theory. The idea that, to use gaming vernacular, there's a dev somewhere in the sky, in the cloud, if you will, that we're running on a game server, and he's playing us on his gaming PC. Maybe all of history, everything we think we know, is all on a server somewhere. Maybe it's all in some really smart kid's bedroom. And we think that all of our lives are so important, and the reality is we're just NPCs inside a really well-made version of something like The Sims. Who knows? But it does seem fascinating when you realize that science and religion all share this idea. Science teaching us that our universe follows clear, predefined rules, much like computer code. It isn't just random. No matter where you go, you'll find an even number of petals on each flower, a certain symmetry which repeats itself again and again. We see from the largest of things to the smallest of things similar recurring themes. And so increasingly it feels like maybe we live in an instance of something which was programmed, not just something that's purely random. It seems like maybe, whether you're religious or you're a person of science, we all subscribe to that notion that maybe there is a God. It's just we visualize that God in different ways. But what if that God is something more like a software engineer and less like the vengeful God of Abraham and Isaac that we get out of the Bible? Wouldn't that be a bit fascinating? You know, we look out at the stars with wonder and adoration, and the crazy thing as we reach out to explore space is we really haven't yet managed to actually find anything out there. We know, based on light distortion and a few other things, how far the heavenly bodies are from us, but they're light years away, very far distances by our mortal standards. And then I think about video games, and I think about how you might go out to the beach, and it's not a coincidence if you play video games that many games are set on islands, because it just feels natural to go down to the beach and you reach this infinite body of water, and it's really there because that's the edge of the map. There isn't anything else out there. There's nothing else to find, because the infinite ocean is actually more of a wall. Now, wouldn't it be crazy if that's how space works? Because usually in video games, there is something that's off the edge of the map. The explorable map that you're able to access ends, but the broader map goes on, and you can still see beyond the explorable area in many cases. You can look out and you can see mountains in the distance. You can see other things far away. You can't get there. You can't get close. And if you did somehow glitch your way out of the defined parameters of your map and got close enough to those things, you'd realize they don't really have any detail. They're low poly objects, just there to be seen from a distance by someone who can't actually get there. What if that's how the stars work? What if we look out light years into the distance and we see these lights in the sky and we think, maybe there's life there. Maybe there's more people like us there. But what if that's not true? What if there really isn't anything out there, and this is all there is for us? We exist on some sort of a game server. We can't really escape. Maybe if we're very ingenuitive, we can figure out how to get to the moon, or we can figure out how to get to Mars, but we can't get outside the solar system. We can't really get light years away to see what's way out there. We imagine that there's things out there, but what if there isn't? Or maybe it's sort of like expansion pack zones. Maybe there is life out there. Maybe there are other chapters to explore, but we're at the mercy of the game devs to release expansion content for us. And one day we will be able to go out there and we'll find life on another planet. We'll find our brethren out in the stars, but not until that expansion zone is finished. Sort of like that RPG that gets a new zone after a while. When the devs decide it's time to add some content, then suddenly it becomes possible to explore places we weren't able to explore before. We think we discovered something amazing, but really, it's just the new expansion came out. Wouldn't that be interesting? Maybe we're on a path that is predefined for us, a destiny that was written, because for humanity there is a main story quest. Certain events which are supposed to happen, and some which just can't happen because they weren't written in. Certain guardrails, depending on the individual. Certain things we can do and certain things we can never do, no matter how much we think we want to. Have you ever had that feeling that your life chooses you instead of you choosing your life? You realize that you work super hard for something, and after a lifetime of effort, not a whole lot really comes of it. And then your life is completely upended and you're on a completely different course because of a random conversation you never even planned to have. Or someone's life is spared or ended because of a chance butterfly effect encounter where you're talking to somebody and you didn't plan to be talking to them, but you are, and now you had this 15-minute conversation with a stranger, and then it turns out somehow they were running late because of that conversation, and then they avoided being in a place where they would have gotten into a horrific accident or something like that, and their life was saved, not because of anything other than just a random water cooler conversation that just changed the course of history, quite possibly. You know, these are interesting things to think about. But then sometimes it seems like, sort of like a game where you're in an open world, you're able to run around and do whatever you want, in a way, and yet no matter where you go, the game will always be trying to push you back toward that main story quest that you're supposed to experience. No matter how much you try to go do your own thing, the same NPCs will always appear to push you back in that direction, to get you back to the main story. And so you have this agency, free will, but there's also that tug of destiny. And if it's a really good game, you're going to be able to have both. You'll be able to maybe choose who you marry in Skyrim and choose what house you buy, and you can spend countless hours just exploring the open world and taking in the beauty of it. And maybe you can even mod it and turn it into something more than what it was meant to be. But there's still that main story. And if you play long enough, eventually the story will find you once again and pull you back into the narrative that you're meant to experience. Sometimes life seems like it imitates art and art imitates life. I was watching a video of Flight Simulator 2024 compared to Flight Simulator 2020, compared to a real-life video of an airplane flying in the same location. It's amazing how realistic games have gotten. And somebody started talking about how the more games get to be more realistic, the more it looks like we're living in a simulation. Because when you're able to make games that are so realistic that they are indistinguishable from reality, as someone said before, it's only a matter of time until we figure out how to create a simulation. And once we create a true simulation that doesn't have limits, then the NPCs, the creatures inside that simulation, will learn how to create a simulation within a simulation. Like the people who create models of computers that operate within Minecraft or something like that. So maybe we are, just like a lot of Russian nesting dolls, simulations running within simulations. As Carl Sagan said, a way for the universe to know itself. Maybe what the purpose of our life is to combine a predetermined path and story with enough free agency for us to discover new things on our own. Sort of like a computer that runs an infinite number of slightly different simulations so that it can explore outcomes to varied scenarios. Essentially, like the old SETI at Home program that would download enormous amounts of data onto personal computers in search of those rare patterns which might be a symbol of extraterrestrial life. Maybe that's what we're all about. We're all supposed to have different experiences, but we also all have a destiny that's kind of written for us. And as we live, for better or worse, all of our experiences add to the collective knowledge of whatever system it is that we are part of. The computer gets smarter because it learns from each iteration. And so, essentially, we're just many, many calculations that all add up to something in the neighborhood of artificial intelligence. Fascinating to think about these things, isn't it? But it's also really amazing to think about how religion and science, despite using such different language, despite having such a sense that they're opposite to each other, they all seem to agree. They just use different language to describe the same thing. Whether you say we're living in a simulation, or you say you believe in God, or you say that you are a student of science, in the end, the purpose of our life is to serve something greater than self, to enjoy the experience as we play through our lives, and to understand that no matter what our method of explaining the unexplainable might be, we really can't understand it because we're in it. And that's okay. So we can have faith and we can have reason side by side, and we can let the unknown be a companion and understand that it all is part of something that's meant to be, whether we understand how all those pieces fit together or not. Whether we're living in something that's fallen together as a result of millions of years of chaos, or if we're living inside some sort of a video game that somebody made for us. Ultimately, no matter how you choose to explain your existence, life is an amazing thing. And so it stands to reason we should have a sense of wonder as we go through the journey. As always, good luck on your journey through life, and thanks for watching.